In a world of fantasy filled with magic and monsters, humans have always been at war with all the demonic beasts in existence, but dragons are something that they hated more than anything. That was the reason why a group of incredibly strong adventurers managed to enter the ancient dragon's lair, and after trapping it completely, the legendary dragon wondered why would these humans want to kill him, even though he has never done anything to harm them. But his time was not done in this world, as he gets reincarnated as a human to a family of farmers in a small village. His parents name him Dolan, and he grows up to be a pretty capable young man who his kids are considered to be fully grown at the age of 15 in this world, which would have been a lifesaver for Epstein. But being an adult means that they have to live on their own and manage their own life. One morning, Dolan meets up with his ugly brother and they go over to the nearby river to fish. His brother asks Dolan whether he is going to the swamp tomorrow, as the captain of the village guard is busy playing Red Dead 2 and figure out whether he has any talents or is he just as useless as his brother, where he meets up with a hottie named Mal and a blonde French named Albert. They Shrek in the swamp as he has become. Pretty as salty over the years, Dolan ignores him and walks back to his house, where he salts the fish and hangs it for drying, as he remembers that their village is on the outskirts of the kingdom on their own. A little while later, a red-haired Lee calls him for his daily magic training, so he walks over to his teacher's house and claims that his offensive magic is one of the best that she has ever seen. Dolan immediately realizes that the noble girl is incredibly skilled and the winters here are incredibly harsh, so they always collect a lot of food beforehand, so he decided to drop some off at his parents' place. He is warmly greeted by his family and his mom cooks a bomb dinner for them as usual. He reveals that he is here alone to check on the swamp conditions. The bimbo immediately starts behaving like a stripper, but she tells him that she is not here to fight. Before he could understand what's happening, though, a giant monster emerges from behind her and tries to crush her beneath his paws. She screams for help, and thankfully Dolan comes in clutch as he slashes the beast's legs off before grabbing the blonde hoe and running away. The monster seems to be made out of muke as he easily regenerates. Its leg wonders, how did this elemental come here, and remembers that there was an earthquake in this area not long ago, and it's very possible that this monster was born out of that. He turns towards the E and asks what her name is. The girl replies that her name is Cell, and she is from the breed of monsters known as the llamas. Dolan has heard of these las or whatevers, as they are famously beautiful and are known for their impressive magical skills. He asks whether she would like to sell, agrees, claiming that she will try her best to provide support, but she isn't very confident about whether she can trust a human. That she just met Dolan finally gives her a signal, and Beast immediately attacks them, as well lashing it cleanly into two pieces. Cell is relieved to see that they have won, but the monster ends up dropping all over her, getting her dirty. Dolan immediately rushes over to her, checking whether she was hurt, and then Cell, with her massive plots, asks Dolan whether he is not scared of her at all, and he replies that she is not like the other llamas that he has encountered. Cell is surprised to know that this man has seen other llamas, and Dolan replies that the llamas he met before her were much more aggressive and wary of humans. He asks what was she doing so close to the human settlements, and she claims that she has recently turned 17, which means that she is an adult now and needs to leave on a journey to find a husband for herself. AI has poison, which not a lot of people can tolerate. That's why it's hard for them to find a man who can survive that. Dolan wasn't even paying attention, as he was wondering where he needs to put it in a snake, but as she excitedly eats her dinner and loves the soup, asking whether it was made by milk, always lonely in his own cave, but now things are better and he has people who he trusts. The next morning, they both get dressed up, as Dolan decides that he won't act like a desperate in Cell and play hard to get. He tells Cell that he would be heading back to his village now, while Cell replies that she will continue her journey south to keep looking for her husband. Dolan smiles and wonders whether their paths are bound to cross again during their journey, but decides to leave for now, as his adventures are just starting. The next day, Dolan and the redhead lowly learn how to cook like Walter White and Jesse Pinkman from the old hag. She tells them that unlike normal magical medicine needs to be prepared with much more care, because just a tiny bit of imbalance in the ingredients can be life-threatening. Delight seems to be a pro as she gets recipe right in the first try, but Dolan fumbles and ends up burning the blue ball cherry. The old hag tells him that he needs to have better control over his fingers, otherwise he won't be able to keep his girlfriend happy, and he apologizes. The liar tells him that it is not the case and he can keep any girl happy because she is sure that he has a cannon between his legs, and the old hag realizes what's going on. Dolan ignores her words and says that it is true that he isn't good while working on such precise recipes. Ari is a bit upset, but then the old woman inspects her medicine and says that she did it perfectly. She dismisses her for the day and tells her to go out and play now. Meanwhile, Dolan is thinking that as a dragon he never got sick, so he didn't have to worry about medicines, but now he can't manage to do the tiny adjustments. The old witch also tells him that although he is good at offensive magic, he needs to get better at magical medicines, but there is no need to rush. She tells him that he should take his time and try out different approaches to find what suits him the best. Later, Dolan gets invited over for lunch by R's family, and as they pray to the goddess M.A.F, he thinks about how he has not seen her since a very long time. After lunch, he runs back home, but the village cowgirl stops him and offers him her milk. Dolan knows that the cow lady's milk tastes heavenly, but he doesn't want to act desperate. He tries to refuse, but by that time she has already squeezed out some milk in a cup. Dolan gulps it in one breath and then runs to the French idiot Albert, who is training some kids to become future knights. They stop training as soon as they see Dolan and rush to show their progress, but he is not interested. He tells them to take a break instead, and then suddenly he senses the presence of a monster coming from the forest while Dolan doesn't say anything about it to Albert. He enters the forest at night to see what is happening. He thinks that the presence felt quite familiar, and as he goes deep into the forest, he finds the glow of a campfire. Dolan goes close and finds that it was actually Cell whose presence he felt, and right now she is in the middle of a hot sponge bath. She freaks out on seeing the pervert Dolan staring at her without any hesitation and falls back. Dolan quickly rushes to her side and stops her from falling and dirtying herself. Before asking what is she doing here, Cell covers her plot as she tells the pervert to stop watching her, and he asks why. He says she looks beautiful and her beauty isn't going to reduce just by his stare. She says that it is embarrassing for her and he should also have some shame. But like a total Chad, Dolan says that all living beings are attracted to beauty, so there should be no shame in watching her. That earns him a tight slap. And even after covering up, Cell is upset at him. Dolan still doesn't understand what he did wrong, but he changes the topic and asks Cell what is she doing here. She sadly says that all the men she met on her journey were afraid of her, so she came back to find Dolan. Even she was quite scared of humans, but she worked up her courage to greet them. But they didn't even give her the chance to explain herself and ran away as soon as they saw her tail. Dolan thinks that he lucked out to have this thought back and says that he had been wishing to see her again. He suddenly realizes a way to get her to stay longer, and then asks what does she think about staying with him. Cell freaks out and asks what does he mean, and Dolan says that she can live with him in their village. Cell thinks it is impossible because people will be afraid of a monster like her, but Dolan explains that they already have demi-humans and beast folk living with them. She would be eventually accepted. As for her being a lamia, Dolan believes that people would be afraid at first, but her gentle personality and enormous plot would win them over. In no time, Cell is overjoyed at the idea that she can be friends with humans and gladly accepts to live with Dolan. He too says that living with her will make his life more enjoyable and there will be some good perks for her. Too. Cell wonders if he is talking about the nighttime exercise, but Dolan has something better for her. He says that when they start living together, she can have his life energy anytime she wants. He stretches his hand towards her and Cell nervously takes it. Dolan sends some of his life energy into her body and Cell feels a river flowing between her legs. After she is satisfied and smiling, Dolan tells her his plan. A few days later, the roided up knight captain and his troops find a huge boar and some fishes at their doorstep. The same thing had been happening for some days now, and everyone is curious. The redhead Mal points out at the trail of a giant snake on the ground, and another girl says that it must be the half-snake monster that they have recently spotted in the forest. The captain knows that lamia are powerful and dangerous monsters, and he doesn't understand why would one leave her prey here. So he decides to inform the village elders about it. Everyone wonders if the monster who was leaving delicious meat on their door is their enemy, but the night captain tells them not to be fooled. He says that a monster will try to hurt them in the end, so he suggests that they form a unit to kill her. Others tell him that they should not take any risks because Lemmy are powerful monsters and suggest requesting backup from them. Capel, the old hag, however, doesn't agree with them. She tells the night captain that no matter how much she cares about the village, he should not take rash decisions without considering all things first. Just then, Eric comes to the room with the weird pot in her hands and tells the hag that she did the fortune telling just as she asked her. The old woman checks the results and says that the fortune reading says that the appearance of a snake is a good fortune, so they must not harm the Linya Dolan was chopping wood outside and listening to everything. He is delighted when he hears that the old witch has convinced everyone to give the Lamia a chance, and in the evening he runs to the forest to share the good news with Sel. He tells her that there is no immediate threat to her, and now they are ready to move to the final phase of their plan. Sel thanks him for helping her because he was the one who told her to leave meat offering outside the village and even helped her hunt. Dolan tells her to not mind it and then explains the final part of his plan to her. The next morning, all the capable fighters of the village and the knights gather for a joint training. Captain Balan tells them about the monster called Lamia and says that they need to stay on guard against her. Albert tells Dolan that all of the village's big shots are here, and he realizes that Balan still considers Sel as a threat. However, all the important people here are just what Dolan needs for the last part of his plan. Balan and Malide, the most important person for his plan, is the priestess who is greatly valued in the village because she can use healing and purification magic. She represents the church and has the power to declare Sel good or evil. Dolan wishes that everything goes well, and the priestess doesn't judge Sel as evil. He looks towards the forest where Sel is trembling with fear and anticipation. Last night, Dolan told her his plan, which included him jumping into the den of low-level monsters and Sel saving him from them. He told her that once she saves him, no one will call her evil, and she will be set to live in the village. She is not sure about it now and wonders when is she supposed to take action. Dolan is also waiting for that moment patiently when a soldier comes running from the forest and tells the captain that he found the monster. Everyone thinks that the Lamia is here and even wonders if there is another snake girl here besides her. However, Dolan, with his sharp senses, realizes that the monster the frantic soldier is talking about is something much more dangerous. Just then, a giant armored bear appears there, and all the knights crap their pants as they see it. Captain Balan tells everyone to slowly head back because they can't even think of fighting the armored bear because it can kill them with one hit. The kids start running, and the redhead cowboy falls to the ground. The bear notices him and starts approaching him, stressing everyone out. Dolan rushes to save the boy, thinking that the only way to stop the armored bear is using his dragon powers. However, just as he is about to reach the boy, Sel leaps out from the bushes too. She shields Dolan and the boy with her body, suffering a severe injury from the bear's claw. In the process, everyone is dumbfounded to see this, and then Sel turns towards the bear, using her innate hypnotic powers on it to send it back to the forest. The bear obeys her and heads back, and everyone is surprised-eyed by Sel's powers. Dolan asks Sel if she is fine, but she asks him if he is blind and can't see the blood gushing out from her wounds. Just then, the night captain slams him weapon on the ground and tells Sel to get away from the villagers. Dolan himself towards the night sky. He finally enters what looks like heaven in his dragon form, and the beautiful goddess Mael is ready to welcome him. Mel replies that the Lamia seems very nice, so she had no choice but to save her. That he was a dragon born in a human form, but Myrel simply laughs, claiming that his life force was much stronger compared to the others. Whenever he decided to pray, human Dolan replies that when the hero's blade pierced his heart, he literally felt no anger or sadness over his death, but as a human he has made some lovely memories staying in the village and how the humans live each day to the fullest because they have such short lives. This gave him a new perspective, and he started enjoying every day of his life on Earth. Miles smiles and tells him that lately he seems to be a little too happy and claims that this might be due to the snake, as even Sel is happier than usual ever since she came in this village. Soon he returns back to his physical body and the next morning he is woken up by Helser to knock before entering, as he sometimes likes to bust one before starting his day cell. Apologizes but claims that he needs to get up as today is going to be an amazing day again. It turns out that Chris, the night woman who is strong and independent, is having a practice sparring match against the Vice Captain Mal. The entire village is standing around them watching them go at each other, while the men try to decide who is more strong and independent. They realize that Mal doesn't seem to be going all out right now, and even Chris notices that as their swords clash once again. So she backs off and tells her to go all out this time. Mal decides that it might be time to show the city thought how things are done in the country. So she takes her dagger out and tells her to get ready for real. Now the battle starts once again as Mel attacks Chris. With her, Chris already expected this, where they order some grub, but the serving wenches are too thirsty for Chris since she looks like an average K-pop artist Albert D. French warns her not to accept this invitation as Ben is an alcoholic. Just like my father, at night Chris returns back to her bed. When Dolan and Cell end up spotting her, they walk up to her while Cell, the dumbass, signing to be a weed whacker, which gets Cell's Ishi takes them back to her house, claiming that it's very nice and comfy, and turns on the light to show the bed filled with hay and assortment of pill, while Cell claims that she's really loving the village and hopes that Chris is having a good time as well, that Bellin's wife personally produces and claims that everyone in the village loves drinking Balin's wife's milk. Chris is kind, she lets it go. Dolan starts talking like a main character about how life in village is hard and honest, but the girls are not interested in that horse crap as they pull Dolan back into the bed with them for a fun night. Openly challenges anyone to drink his wife's milk more than he can. Weird, but okay. Soon the door opens and Chris enters the tavern as well, and she is immediately greeted by friendly faces all around. While Balin calls her over to try some of his wife's milk, Chris decides to give it a try and engage. In this weird custom, she chugs an entire, actually freshly squeezed, has produced milk. Now, this is getting a little too creepy by the writers of this anime, but I have to recaps before he could teach her something, though. One of the guards runs up to them and tells them to immediately come towards the village gate. They immediately start running. Once there, an outsider commissioner immediately has both Dolan and Cell surrounded by a bunch of guards, but if she has to live like a citizen of this country, she must go through procedures of the government. Dolan finds this fishy, so he requests the commissioner to let him accompany them to the capital, and the commissioner agrees. Just like that, both Dolan and Cell are escorted by the royal guards back towards the capital. Chris starts getting worried about this situation and decides that she should meet up with the head mistress of her institution, as she has great influence on the government. So she uses her spells to boost her speed and leaves for the capital herself, who are still traveling in the carriage. And she immediately gets a meeting with the elf headmistress named Olivia. She tells she has mice blessing, but Chris claims that Cell would never do anything like that, and Olivia agrees, claiming that the Lamia was nowhere near the disappearances, but suspects that Kay simply wants to have Cell killed illegally. For some other reason, this surprises Chris as she wonders whether poor Cell and Do, you know what they haven't gotten themselves into, as she prays for their safety.